Okay.
Imagine this. You find the house of your dreams and spend your life savings on it. A quaint home, distinctive windows at the top, just large enough for your family, and it's in a nice neighborhood. Then a mere 28 days of living there, you are forced to flee for fear of the safety of your loved ones from this house of your nightmares. The story of the Amityville house is highly famed, with reports of disembodied voices, chairs flying across the room, and even the Lutz children seeing a small pig with red, evil-looking eyes following them like it was a pet throughout the house. After multiple movies, books, and even a graphic novel, this haunting has been imprinted into horror story history. In 1974, a 23-year-old shot and killed both of his parents and 4 siblings in their sleep. His name was Ronald DeFeo Jr. He said he heard voices coming from the house telling him to get rid of them. Reported to have an already angry and dangerous individual before the murders ever occurred, it seems that the house exacerbated these qualities to the point that he acted on his anger. A year later, the Lutz family moved in. They experienced phenomenon like apparitions, various shapes and sizes, doors slamming on their own, flickering lights, slime oozing from the ceiling, and locks on the doors, footsteps and cold spots that never moved. The family was frightened by these bizarre things, so they called a priest to advise them to stay somewhere they deemed safe. The family went to stay with the kids' grandparents. Later that night, they experienced levitating, disembodied voices. The grandparents experienced this as well, even though they had not lived in the house. The fear culminated enough within the family to force them to call the priest again and have him visit this time. He was threatened and scared away, his hands were burned. Less than a month later, the Lutz family abandoned their dream home. George and Kathleen Lutz called in author Jane Anson to document their explanation of the haunting. Regardless of the skeptics, they have tried to debunk this encounter. Anson continues to ensure that this account of the supernatural is true. He taped 35 hours of the very detailed interviews that George and Kathleen gave. And George Lutz made a statement to the press saying that the haunting was true. They had taken polygraphs to state that they were not lying. There are also pictures taken within the house showing various apparitions. One of a little boy that strongly resembles the DeFeo's younger brothers, and there's also one from the crime scene of Nutty Mattress, of the 7-year-old little boy that has been said to have been seen all over the place. Apparently, he was shot through the back by his older brother. One of the most interesting and proven parts of George's accounts, on which Kathleen and him were sleeping in the upstairs bed when they were awoken by voices and windows slamming and the wind blowing the sheets off their bodies. Weather records around the 18-mile radius said that definitely could have happened that night. Another few interesting facts that I found were that the famous mass murderer Al Capone had lived in Amityville before moving on to Chicago. In a few interviews, he has said that he heard voices after he left the town telling him to kill people. Along with that was the case of a mother that lived in the town that said the voices convinced her to put her children in boiling water and strangle them to death. Coincidence? I find that doubtful. In 1977, DeFeo's lawyer contacted a famous paranormal investigator, Hans Holzer, who later brought in a psychic. Her name was Ethel Johnson Myers. She said that she spoke with an Indian chief, and that it was a possibility he was the one that possessed Ronald DeFeo Jr. He took photographs of bullet holes that glowed, and it just all around freaked everyone out, especially people that were working on the movies, and it also freaked Jay Anson out. It said that he was kind of scared to even walk into the house after doing his initial interviews. Now, if your hopes and dreams had been answered with a house that fit every aspect of your life perfectly, why would you run away from it and stake claim to a fake haunting? Would a family that spent every last penny that they had to their names lie about the reasons for leaving like the skeptics claim that they did? The only thing that I can think is that they wouldn't. They would have stayed happily in the house without a word being said. If they simply didn't want to live there any longer, they would have sold the house and moved. Instead, they rush away like they had no choice. Lastly, I believe that they didn't really have a choice, and they had to leave for fear. The fear of something that they could not explain. The once beautiful but now changed house at 112 Ocean Avenue in Amityville, New York, is famed for its haunting, and I believe the lessons account. My only question is, what do you think after this?
Questions for Kelsey?
Does anybody live in it now?
Yes, and apparently they don't think that there's anything going on. They changed the windows to the house. It doesn't even look like the same house anymore.
We can make a lot of money if we work at the
Yeah, they could.
10% off. You went through the
Yeah, there's a bargain for you.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
Don't say I'm not nice.